want to welcome everyone to the Danville City Commission special call meeting this morning, Thursday, June the 8th, at the hour is 10 o'clock. And we're here to deal with our budget, proposed budget, draft budget. So, Mr. Coffey, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. First, I want to thank you for your patience this spring. Seems like it's been a little hectic, and it has felt like that. I know for me, with a daughter graduating, I know my schedule's been pressure-packed this spring. I want to thank Lee for her effort through the process. She's really, first time I did this, you know, to this year's totally different experience for me, and I want to thank her for that. Thank the staff for that. The staff as management team put forth. I know Becca's in the back, and I know there's some others listening, and Ashley's here, but the management team, they do their operating budgets. I got a lot of confidence in those when those are delivered to us. I just do now. We're all on the same page. I feel like they're a great group of people to work with, and I'm thankful to have them around to help through process like this. It makes my job a lot easier. And so I just want to take 2 seconds and thank them for that. Now, saying that, we'll get into the budget presentation. You all have done a lot of work. The first thing what I'd like to do is reiterate what the KRS is, the budget process. KRS 91A030 requires that the city adopt a budget annually by ordinance. The budget ordinance, what it does is approves the appropriations of the cities. We do fund accounting by fund, so we have several of those listed, and you've seen those. You are well aware of those. Balanced, the budget is required, the expenditures or appropriations is required not to exceed the revenue that you all have allotted. Now, that's an interesting statement because you all could always add more revenue somewhere, but the year that we're going into, that's not happened. So we do have a balanced budget given our existing tax rates and our revenue that we currently receive. The draft must be presented in 30 days. We did that really before that last time. It must be adopted prior to July 1st. We all know that. The budget draft it must be formed from an assessment of needs. The department heads, we rely on the operational needs, capital needs we've talked a lot about as a group. You all have done the strategic plan. Some of the things that we've done in the budget this year already incorporates the strategic plan ideas that was espoused by the commission as a group, as a board. And so we thank for that input. I'm going to try to steer the city manager report around that a little bit and retailer that as we get into July. So the operational goals and the city goals really was a collective effort between the department heads and the Board of Commissioners. And I hope that it's understood that has happened. I know sometimes when we do piecemeal meetings, we'll do something, we'll just talk about compensation. Sometimes it doesn't seem like that is a collective goal, but really those things, that was, to me, that we've had a very healthy interaction between staff and the commission. And then the next piece is just the budget message, which we're starting to really draft that. So part of what we're doing today is what that budget message will consist of. And so with that, then, there was one more point that we will make in the budget message is that there's no change to the financial policies that you all previously established. So that's just as a matter of record. Those are remaining the same. The revenue, we did project that some of the revenues were slightly above estimates, and so that was a positive. We did consider the tax rates. There's no rate changes for the occupational compensating rate for property. And we discussed back in the winter a reduction to the insurance premium tax, slight from 10% back down to 8%. And so the net tax position is improved a little bit by rates, since we did have a reduction in insurance premium tax and there was no other rate changes. Operations. Big part of operations is personnel cost. Really, it drives everything that the city does. The city services are driven by our personnel across the board, which is why the compensation, market study, retainage, those things, those factors really improve our services over time. So the first thing was we noted that the CRS, the retirement contribution rate, decreased a little bit, which was a good starting point to our personnel costs this year. The health care, through the effort of Johnson & Pullman, Funkhauser, and Randy Boyd, we really appreciate those guys digging in and doing the work they do from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the trajectory that our premiums were on versus kind of where they're at now. They're stabilized. And so we're in a position now that we can better assess that going forward even, right? The compensation, so we started out with a 3-year market study. We got into the 3rd year this year. We had indicated last budget cycle what we would do is proof test that last number to make sure that given COVID, given inflation, that last step was going to be correct or would put us where it needs to be. The overall impact of the economy, the pressure on the labor force meant that the market had gotten away from us a little bit. So therefore, we broke step 3 into step 3A and 3B. 3B will occur next year. We felt like it was really a little bit more in 1 year than we wanted to endure or wanted to propose. We appreciate your all's patience with us working through what that recommendation should be. And so the 3A and 3B, so we broke it out into this year, and then the last step would be next year, so that the following winter, so as we get into the fall of 2024, Randy will go through the same process he went through this year, and then he'll proof test our salaries against the market. Only this time we'll be starting what we believe will be at market, right? So that I think we've moved to what you would consider a strong position with our labor force, with benefits, with our health insurance, our retirement, and our pay. And we also keep in mind, we've talked about things like pay equity. So we do the previously implemented the last fiscal year, we do experience-based pay changes, and within the pay scale, it's based on your experience, not necessarily just an assessment of your capacity, but really what's your experience. So then authorized positions, we have the table printed for you in the back, and we can talk about that in detail if y'all want to get into it. The summary is that we decreased one position. We're not replacing a pure code enforcement department director. We're embedding those functions in the police and inside of engineering. There's 2 different types of codes enforcement you do. One of them is tied to sidewalks and tied to things that are engineering-based. The other are your pure legal side of your code enforcement, which is police-based. We got ABC, so then that couples well with moving the ABC into the police department. So this provides more of a structure to those functions that the city does, both ABC. And then also that provides a nice place for parking too inside of the police department. The police chief is on the parking board. It all makes sense to me, and we appreciate you guys being open-minded about that suggested change. We did, in this budget, add an EIT to support engineering, the stormwater program specifically. We need to bump start that. We need to be improved in our, record keeping and all those details that the state really wants. But also then that EIT will be able to support Josh and some of the other on-street public works things like stormwater culverts and just all those things that are heavy bricks and mortar type stuff. We've talked a little bit about, or a lot about, overhiring at the water plant and wastewater plant. We do anticipate quite a number of retirements. And so what we've done is we've added 2 positions to the water plant, understanding that when we see those retirements, those positions won't be duplicated, right? So there are overhires, we've talked about those. Those are budgeted. And then reclassification. So you got a couple requests from the department head. So the Public Works, we want to identify a concrete specialist. We have someone that is performing that duty. So instead of a maintenance worker, we want to have a concrete specialist position that can take the lead on concrete projects. The equipment manager job that we've had for a long time, we want to retitle that to equipment specialist. That's more aligned with how they're actually functioning. The police, we added the captain to address the ABC parking and codes. The other, yes, and so then engineering, we wanted to change the administrative assistant to the engineering clerk, which is akin to your utility clerks or some of those positions by title. Seemed to be a little bit more consistent with what task that staff member needed to perform, needed to be upgraded to, right? And then in parks, there was two changes. One was from a recreation manager to a recreation supervisor. That aligned that position with the other positions in the department, and that you have a maintenance supervisor, you have a recreation supervisor, you have a programming supervisor. So this, instead of having one title that was a manager title, you've got three titles that are all supervisor titles. The other is the maintenance worker that we designated as the athletic maintenance supervisor. Then, so all of those changes really netted out your operating expenses. Of course, we did consider some line item expense changes, for example, gas, some inflationary things like electric. But these are the things that really impacted any changes to your net operating budget. Moving forward, then we talked about capital a little bit. Capital is a very heavy subject. We understand that it's very hard for some folks, if you step into a commission meeting and you're talking about a capital project, it's hard to understand when that project actually started and when that project will actually end and which fiscal year it's in. And a lot of times it's carried over into multiple fiscal years, 3 or 4 potentially. The wastewater plant's a good example of that. I think it's in its 4th budget cycle. So capital is hard to understand. We did have the capital summary. We had a discussion about that. Work in progress is the key. As we over the next 12 months, we just funded the work that we had underway or that was required by outside funding or operational requirement, for example, a water quality requirement like at the water plant or et cetera. A legal requirement, for example. Parks planning, we know that we're going to come back. We're trying to get that scheduled given summer schedules that we're all dealing with. We will come back. We'll have a workshop with the commission. Take 2 seconds on that real quick because I know there's a lot of questions, and I had a chance to sit down with Judge Bottoms this past week and talk through that as well. So we did the 2017 Parks Master Plan, which was a needs assessment of our system. Then with that, the city acquired the fairgrounds, acquired Jenny Rogers. So then the next step, which was in 2021, 2022, which was to take Michael Smith, take those parks, take that 2017 plan, identify the things that you could fit into those facilities that we currently do not have that was identified in 2017. So it was a parks facilities plan. It was on the implementation side into your building. So now that you've seen those things, so for example, we know that there's an opportunity for a pool at Jenny Rogers even, right? So now the next meeting with parks will be you all hearing all those things and identifying that top 5 list as a commission, right? You tell us of course, I think, I myself have gotten towards, I think, what I could recommend to you. But we want to assess what those top 5 things are. Then once you assess and prioritize those top 5 things for you, then we need to talk about how we discuss those with the county. So we've had this ongoing process that's a little bit confused. We met with magistrates last year. We met with them on site in parks. We had them in our vehicles, and we showed them the completion of that first step in the facility, what I'm calling the Parks Facilities Plan process. So now they are waiting on us to get back to them and to say, these are the 5 things we're going to prioritize now. And then hopefully they'll want to participate and partner in some way. We don't know that, right? So that's just kind of the path that's on. That is an ongoing path. There is not, that's just been a work that has been ongoing since 2014, really. That facilities plan, the parks assessment, a lot has changed. The 2017 recommended one city or county government take it over, so that turned into the city. And so all of those changes, that is still ongoing, right? And so we appreciate everyone's patience. We want to do a good job. I think staff is trying to align itself with improving our facilities, improving our operations, improving our programming. And so just understand all those words really are what direction we're going generally, right? I hope that helps a little bit on the parks. On other services, community agencies were virtually flat, very little change to the allocation of the community agencies. Economic Development Corp, it's fully funded at the 150. The EDA will have the city deposit in the fiscal year we're in June occur. It will have the county deposit occur. So the EDA will begin the year with money in the bank. Should be about $100,000 with no front-end liability that is immediate. So as time passes, as the PDI application moves forward, as all these things happen, there will be a demand for money, I'm sure, to the EDA. Those will be on an as-needed basis, probably, at least in the fiscal year we're going into. JJ's here. We appreciate what he's trying to do and how he's trying to communicate. And so as he's getting his arms around programmatically how we want to function and those things mature, the EDA matures and the new EDC matures, then we'll be a little bit more streamlined over time. And I think it won't seem as, well, what's this right arm doing? What's the left arm doing? As time passes, those modernize, they'll synchronize a little bit better, and everything will be a little bit more obvious to the just person walking down the street. Planning and zoning, fully funded. Airport, remember, they have a significant amount of grant money that they've gotten that requires capital matching funds locally, so that is included in the budget. The police pension fund, we haven't talked a lot about. We met as the pension board the week before last, considered that, looked at the actuarial that was provided on the deposit on the savings account for the fund, and recommended as a board a 6.5% increase to the retirees in the fiscal year we're going into. That will occur in August. The contribution from the city didn't change because of that. So the number that we have, which is $135,000 this year, is the same as it was last few years. So we're sitting there, the retirees will get a 6.5% increase this year, which is consistent with the inflation number that was given to us through DLG, and then the city's contribution doesn't change. So that's a positive for the retirees, which I think there's less than a dozen. Yeah, there's 6 now officially left in that fund. Organizational changes, one of the things that is a bigger picture item is what we'd like to do, and we'll have this as we finalize the organizational chart, and we'll have you accept some of these things as completed. But I'd like to redo the public services by name to community services, and then consolidate the organizational chart a little bit by doing that, so that we have you'll have multiple departments with about the same number of employees versus several with a smaller number of employees. So what we'd like to do is consolidate anything that happens outside of this building on property that is municipally owned really goes through community services, whether it be Parks and Recreation, whether it be stormwater, whether it be the cemeteries, that goes through community services. Right, we've talked a little bit about that. Codes enforcement, moving those functions of codes existing. You had codes administration, you had the DHB administration, parking administration, and ABC administration under one department. That's a pretty diverse set of functions of the city. So what we've done is in the budget, we've disseminated, for example, in the police and engineering codes, parking, and ABC. That leaves us with the DHB. I've met with Michaela, Ms. Jerry about that a couple different times. She and I are of the same mindset. I believe that DHB would probably is really the same function as planning and zoning in terms of it's an administration of a development standard. Now, the folks in the Heritage Council may say, well, no, this is a historical standard. Yeah, it's a historical standard, but it's the same thing, right? So what we'd like to do is propose a solution. We've met with Ms. House a couple times. We'll continue to meet with her. I owe her communication. And so that's on me. I'll try to make sure I communicate with her this week again to follow up. I know we had this big high-level discussion. They were able to pull me into the DHB board meeting the last time, and so we did talk about and hypothesize about this idea at that board meeting for just a minute. As we go back to planning and zoning, it seems like there's a lot of credibility to that to make things more efficient for development to happen. And so what we need to do is figure out what that finally looks like. So we'll move the part-time staff, will become a part-time staff of planning and zoning. And then the actual ordinance, it could stand alone as a ordinance like it is now. It could be a text amendment to planning and zoning's ordinance. So what I'd like to do administratively with the city attorney and with Michaela and their attorney and Ms. House is talk about what best, how does that best, what needs to change to accommodate that more efficiently. So we don't want just another ordinance sitting over here that is something else somebody has to follow. If we can streamline that, we want to streamline that. The boundary doesn't change. It has nothing to do with the boundary. The boundary is still a different discussion. But this is purely the administration of the DHB. So we want to have that suggestion to you sometime, really the first part of July, but we'll check schedules and make sure that's probably a regular commission meeting. Michaela will need to talk about planning and zoning too, so there will be time lapses, not because of inaction, but because of just meeting schedules.
Earl,
Go ahead.
excuse me. Sounds like a great idea. Planning and zoning is partially funded by the county, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. And in this case, I would think the county has nothing much to say about ARHB, but are they kept informed?
We've mentioned that probably once, and because it is, no money will come from the county at all to do the work. The staff is already a city employee, so that staff member would just move to planning and zoning. So really, it's not something administratively that the county cares about, probably. But when I say that, caring, meaning they have no financial stake in it. They have no administrative stake in it.
Okay.
Right? And so yes, we will inform them. Yeah, we'll talk more about it. But I really felt like that until Michaela and I actually got to, 3 options in writing, you can do this, this, or this. Then I really want to engage the county then, probably a little bit with the county judge, just
Very
make
good.
sure she knows.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah. So then the executive summary of these things that we've talked about are really the components to your budget message that we'll have drafted. The last slide will be your budget summary, your executive summary, which is really these core things. The goals of the budget will be to sustain what we have ongoing, our police, fire, emergency services, facilities. Then we will complete ongoing projects, and then also the efforts to maintain our staffing. So that results in a pretty boring budget cycle, honestly, with nothing really dramatic, no real big hard things other than getting to Parks and Rec. So your Parks and Rec is your drama, but really that's not, you know, that doesn't have to be resolved to have your budget ordinance. But like we've talked about, that's been going on for years and will continue for years in the future. The revenue, no structural increases. There is a decrease to the insurance premium tax. No changes in fiscal policy. The fund balance is above the target minimum. It's not a requirement to maintain 300 days of operating funds, but we're trying to, that's kind of that range where Lee and I are talking about how we feel, where we feel comfortable given the cash flow that the city has. And then the budget ordinance itself is a balanced budget ordinance. And so that's it. And those are our notes. That will be our budget message. So next, the appropriations. Do you want to talk, Lee, or do you want me to just continue right on? So the appropriations table for the budget ordinance looks like this. Total budget per fund is $63,174,156, which is a decrease from the appropriations last year because you had carryover capital that concluded, and then some of the Parks and Rec funding that was in the budget we didn't do last year. So it was a little higher. And I think we still had some in the fire station that was still in that number as well. So that concluded, which enabled the appropriation to decrease. General fund allocations, $28 million, which is your largest fund. The second largest is obviously the utility fund, which is $21 million, 21.4. The 63 is in line with the year before last, and so it's all really on target with where the city has been trending for the last few years, exception of last year where we had so much carryover. The general fund itself, we're anticipating with an ending fund balance after the fiscal year of $16.4 million. The target is $6.6 million. It is approximately $2.4 million lower to begin the year than estimated, which was again largely due to capital, and it's $13.9 million less than the year before, which again that's an expression of capital investment, streetscape. The utility fund will end with a fund balance of $19 million. Target is $1.2 million. Approximately $8.3 million higher, largely because of the influx of some funding for the capital, the outside, your SRF money, for example. Fund balance table, this is what it looks like. FY22 is the first column. The estimated year end that we're in is in the middle column. And then the end of the next fiscal year is the next column. So as you all well know, talked a lot about the fund balance at the end of FY22 was $30 million. At the end of this next fiscal year, that would be spent down to 16.4. That spend down is all capital. Municipal aid, we're allocating because of the roadway construction and the street paving. We're projecting to draw that down, but until you do the actual construction of for example, I think there was 3 roads identified, your fund balance will stay a little higher.
A large portion of that is grant funded.
Right. Some of your smaller funds, you can see are fairly level. The Parks and Rec fund is precisely, that it's kind of where we're leaving it for right now. Cemetery fund, you see the pull down for the committal shelter construction. Stormwater fund, he's engaging with some additional design work and then a small construction project. And let's see, utility fund, again, can vary wildly based on the inflow and outflow of construction dollars. Museum fund is stable, parking fund is stable as well.
So, a couple years back, I think it was when, prior to me starting, we just didn't allocate some of the yearly allocations, so it went negative a little bit. And then contributing to that is that we had a contract difference with Republic for part of the year last year. So that essentially meant that we were spending a little bit more than we were charging because we wanted to charge the correct people the correct thing. When you include interest, like this is a estimate, interest at the end of each year that's allocated, eventually that's going to balance out. That's really like a net zero would be amazing. $49,000 or $46,000 out of a couple million isn't significant, but eventually that'll climb back up and net out. But
Yeah,
that's
and the
not-
goal is to audit the
Yeah.
accounts. And so as we continue, in theory, if we're charging for everything that they're collecting correctly, then that is exactly zero. And so really, that number this year, what we'd like to do is use the EIT position, use the engineering clerk's position to audit that again. And I think that as you audit that over time, keep in mind, we had some struggle getting Republic to change. Remember, they had a significant staff turnover this winter. In January, I think was the exact month. So as Republic has come back to us, they know that we need to do the audit. They know that needs to be reconciled fully. And so I anticipate that getting closer to zero as that time passes in the fiscal year we're going into.
Yeah. And I think it's realistic that we won't end exactly at 46,000. There'll probably be a little bit less in the current fiscal year. But that's considered an enterprise fund, so it can be negative, unlike, say, the general fund. A deficit is not, it's not ideal. Nobody wants a deficit in that fund, but it's not material or super problematic considering where we're at with it, in my opinion.
Like you said, 47,000 out of our budget's not bad. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That's like half a person.
Well, and the garbage fund. Well, there you go. Yeah, and the garbage fund is a direct cost, a direct service, right? There's no rate of return on that. It's a direct pass-through, dollar in, dollar out, right? So that's going to be it. That's the shape of your budget ordinance. And so I've given what will be the budget message. We'll prepare that, have that ready. Attached with you is your personnel changes, for example. That will be attached. Your authorized position list is in the back. So you can look at that. We'll ask you to adopt that to hold us accountable. We will have our debt summary attached that we get from R.J. Palmer's group. So what questions do you have? And I want to make sure we're all in a good place.
Will those documents be attached to the second reading?
We will try to assemble all of those like we've done here at the second reading.
Okay.
We'll try to have the debt report.
Debt and the-
This is your personnel. This
Right, I
is
saw
this is just
that.
kind of where it's at. So that will be attached. The PDF of every department is in here, right, already. And so we will have those attachments built into it. Yeah, absolutely.
To the second
We'll have the cash sheet that we produce for you. That will be in there. It'll be updated a little bit. You'll have what was the other one? The capital sheet. We'll put that in there with it. And so we'll adopt all of those things at one time with the budget book. That will happen sometime this month. I don't know when that will be fully assembled yet, because I will be not here next week.
Notice I stepped that in there.
Yeah. I just want to say on the budgets, I mean, I think if the public could see the budgets, I guess I appreciate the fact that the departmental budgets, well, first, thank you for having the budget presented like it was, and the staff for doing what they do. But if you look, what we see is most every department, all of it's personnel. I mean, like a police department's running a police department on $400,000 or $300,000, probably less than that. And that's, I think that's needs to be said, that most of, every department is running on a slim budget, really. All of it's personnel.
It is, and
And if you
I
look
do
at it-
agree with that, yeah. So that's a great point, and so what I'd like to do is put this information together, and Melanie is kind of like that, and I'm not trying to put it on her to do, but what I'd like for her to do, being that outside view, not having been here for years, I'd like for her to distill the information out into a presentation to put on our website to have, right, and to make available to the public. And certainly, this summer, we would be more than happy to do a public hearing, public workshop, and just present that information to the public, those who wants to attend. All the meetings we have are public, and we try to do, we do our budget reports, and we try to make them available, and we try to put stuff on the web, but, to the extent the public wants to know, for sure, we probably will steer to, and you had mentioned that one time before, so we probably do need to steer ourselves towards a public hearing of some kind, just as a workshop that we present information, not necessarily a commission meeting where action's being taken, just where we present
Right.
the budget outwardly, yeah, and we will work towards that. Again, I'd give her random things and try not to give her input on those things, because I want her to have the clarity of not hearing my voice when she puts it together, right? Not hearing that history. So hopefully that provides a different perspective in what we communicate. So we'll put all this together, we'll let her do that, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I just think, for transparency, that's what I heard over and over, transparency. Well, this document that you gave is very, very good, and if you can, explain it a little to the public, I mean, even more, if they want a copy of it, that's great. They could see. I
Yep.
think everybody's on a thin budget, really, other than personnel, which is what you have to have.
We do put the budget after it's final.
Right.
Published on the website. So last year's is available. I agree with Earl, we're probably not doing a great job of making it public friendly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're giving all the requirements needed for you all to make decisions and for us to operate, but we're probably not doing the best job at making it readable and understandable to the general public who are not familiar with how government works. So I think we
Yeah.
do need to do a little better job with that.
Well, the summary on the first page was fabulous.
Right.
And I just think this is probably the most simple one I've seen, and with the best explanation. I just have it's a silly question. Municipal aid, is that grants?
No, municipal aid is your proportion share of the gas tax from the state.
And we are anticipating getting aid grants, potentially for the Stanford Road connector in the upcoming year.
Right.
Great, okay.
But most of that routine operations out of that is your gas tax.
So gas taxes, all those numbers, like the 1 million and?
No, the road aid, the anticipated grant is I think it's like 1.2 or 1.5
Yeah.
million next year. Normally,
Yeah.
we're getting about 300 to 350,000 a year
Okay.
in gas tax. And that's what usually funds your just normal paving list.
Okay. And what does CAP mean for road projects? Do you know?
Probably capital.
Oh, just capital? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was a program.
Yeah, it's probably
Okay.
just a shorthand for capital. Yes. So that 1.8, that's the anticipated Stanford Road connector potentially. And then there were two smaller, roads that were.
Let me, it's Stewart's Lane.
Stewart's Lane.
Yeah, she's
I
saying.
don't know roads.
Yeah, it's
I
Stewart,
don't, I can tell you where McDonald's is, but not based
So
on the
not
road.
Stanford,
not Stanford, it's Stewart's Lane. yeah.
Stewart's Lane. Oh, okay.
I think they're in the same.
I was
They
getting
they
all excited.
connect, don't they?
They're close.
I'm in finance for a reason, guys. Oh. I think it's over that way.
Yeah.
But that 1.8, no, is partially a potential grant and then the pull down of some fund balance. But the other, the 250 and the 25,000 is your typical normal gas tax items.
Okay, thank you. That was the one page I didn't really fully understand, so.
No, so now, the code enforcement is going to stay its own department, or are we going to merge that into police department?
Well, from a budget perspective, right now, we're in the fiscal year we're going into, we want to keep that separate for a
Okay.
minute. And then, so then next fiscal year, I would anticipate that sheet may be even going away.
But the overall administration of it will be the police department.
Will be a combination of the police department and engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Siri, Mr. Cottle?
No, as always, great. And as far as being, which is probably a good thing, but yeah, as far as being transparent, we've tried all along, and I would love to know how we
Yes.
could do that better.
Yeah.
Because we've been trying forever to get, I mean, you can provide the information, you can't make people read it or understand it. I don't know, maybe having a public hearing is the thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah, we've not done that in a while. I mean, we've tried that before, but it's been like ever.
time,
It's been like 2010
Yeah.
kind of age. So, yeah, I mean, it would be, I'd be more than happy to sit down and give a presentation about how the city operates and the money tied to it and just make that available for someone that wants to come in and listen, yeah. Regardless of what people say, the city is extremely transparent.
Well,
And most of the time, when someone comes in and says, well, we don't know anything about this, that's not transparent. Honestly, it's already been talked about probably 2 times in public meetings and on YouTube, and a report's been made, and, but I concede this, it's not, and I say this all the time about other subjects, it's our job, it is not the community's job to come in and it's our job to govern, right? So we work for the city, so it's our job to communicate. It's not their job to do our job, right? So they shouldn't come in here and beg us to tell them something. We should be more than willing to just go above and beyond by doing a public hearing and giving another opportunity to speak and to be more transparent overtly, which I'm an advocate for. I mean, I agree with that.
It would really be neat if you could find a way to take everything about the budget and put it into a 2 or 3 page summary, and then to have some public hearing, but have the budget be discussed by, don't take it the wrong way, Leo, by a non-finance person.
No,
by
absolutely.
Just a person that just understands the budget stuff, but not really all that heavy kind of stuff, because like the mayor, for example.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea. So you get invited to the meeting.
'Cause
You're the speaker. You're listed on the agenda at that
Hey,
meeting.
that's okay. I can take this one page here, though, like you say, and under each one of those categories, there are probably about 3 or 4 things that we could pull out from the general fund that would get people's attention. There'll be a couple of things in municipal aid, and all down the list that would say, this is the total amount, but here's some of the major things that come out of the general fund. Here's some major things that come out of the stormwater fund, whatever it might be. And then that thing about the garbage fund, what was it? Say it's $47,000. Well, that means that the citizens in this town who benefit from garbage and trash collection are paying their own way, practically except for about 1 or 2%. That $47,000 is what we keep there to sort of keep it balanced. And it sort of keeps the rates down a little bit, although we just had a rate increase. But it again helps people understand that when you spend this money with the city, or donate this money to the city, or pay your taxes, this is what the money goes for. In a simple way. I don't know what that would be, but I say the public hearing would be very beneficial. I do remember coming to one or two, but the last time I came to one, I was running for the city commission, I think, the last time I came to one, the first time I ran.
Yeah.
So it has been around.
It's been a
Yeah,
long
It's been a
time.
while.
They was using crayons and stuff to put the chart up on the board, you know, but again, it's,
You know, and I'll tell you something else too, what we could do, so that screen is good, but even during a regular commission meeting, what I'd like to do, and I was gonna talk to IT about this, is have our TV set up in here so that what's on your screens, on your laptops, we're scrolling through.
Right.
And, you know, up there, it's a hassle because it's behind your head and it's, you know, but have something available for just the general audience to see what in the world you are looking at.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, I think that will help.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I wanna talk to IT about doing that too. I think that's an improvement. Just little things like that, I think will be helpful.
Well, I mean, I think also having, not to harp on that, but having people understand, look at the Parks and Rec budget and look at the contributions from others.
Well, the contribution from, so out of Parks and Rec
fees and stuff, yeah.
is, the revenue is on sheet 31.
Yeah.
Or the summary is on sheet 30. And so in the fiscal year you're going into, the budgeted expense of Parks and Recreation is $6,265,000. Okay? The operating revenue tied to the county is $344,000, tied to the city, then if we match that alone would be $344,000. The flaw with that is that 17,000 people in the city pay county taxes. So of that 344,000, if you assume half live in the city, half of that 344,000 is coming also from people that live in the city limits, right? So the true contribution of those that live outside of the city limits is less than $200,000 on a budget that's $6.2 million, $6.5 million, right? So there's value for our partnering governments, in my opinion. Now, do we need to, and keep in mind, we talked a little bit about the agreement. The agreement covers the operations of Millennium Park, the Bunny Davis Center, and the pool. That's it. The operating budget for those things. So when we look at just the operating budget for Millennium Park is $832,000. The operating budget for the fitness center is $443,000. And the operating budget for the pool is $90,000, right? So the operating expenses alone are, 1.35, right? And so there is equitable treatment within that fund.
Is it
And
equitable?
it's not the other direction.
Yes.
Set like that, like
That's
it's distributed in an effort to be transparent, so the numbers are here. And so what we will do is we'll continue to make sure we have open dialogue, and we will help our partnering agency understand, see the numbers better. We've shared the budget before. We'll share this one now that it's done, and we'll go through it and try to identify and help continue to move understanding forward, because that's really what sometimes the problems are. It's communication, and it's just an overall, you know, misinterpretation of the agreement itself. And so there's been no county money put into the tennis courts whatsoever, for example, not a penny. There was no county investment in the water plant park, for example, the splash pad out there. There was none of that, right? Not a penny. And so we have to communicate that again and continue to find ways that the county can be involved. And that were conversations. So where I talked a little bit about that process, you know, we've communicated outwardly that we did the 2017 plan. That was given to the county. Last year, we walked through the development of the facilities plan, given the Jenny Rogers and the fairgrounds like we talked about. And so now, the next report due back to them is, these are the 5 things that we want to do. How do you all want to participate? That's the capital discussion that's ongoing, you know? And so we'll,
And Earl, I think it's safe to say that thus far from all those discussions, we've been told one thing. And that's to put our money, Lillian Park, Bundy Davis Center, and the pool.
right.
And that's what we've
That's
We've
what
done.
we've done.
to the penny.
Two, the complicating things also is that we were administering an agreement with some elected officials at the county that are no longer in office, right? And so naturally, we have to adapt our communication to what those that are in office now want, right? And that's okay. That's just normal transition of government, right? So we will effort to do a good job with that. We will effort, again, we're transparent. We're not hiding anything. So we will give them any information they want, and then we will be programmatic about that. So once this fiscal court asks, and once we know that this is the information they want to see, this is how they want to communicate, we're going to do that. You know, that's just how, that's what we're going to do.
And then the citizens who pay fees to participate in things in Park and Rec, they're paying up a second or a third time to
Potentially.
live in the city, which again, it helps keep the cost down, but to me, that's all good information that if you want to hear about it, we ought to be willing to share it with you.
Any more on the budget discussion?
I didn't see our raises in there. Is that an oversight?
That was intentional.
We can free up some money right now if you want to. We can get rid of Lee.
You could do that. You could do that. I think Earl would, just like have to do
Meltdown.
all this himself next year, but
I'm just
you could do
kidding.
that.
And Lee, I'd vote with Earl to keep you.
Okay,
There's been a lot
I
of
know
clarity,
it, Kevin.
a lot of clarity, yes.
He's at the bottom of the commission list.
Yeah, this is true.
Don't we need a new car for the mayor, too? Oh, no.
So what do we need from, what do you need from us?
Well-
Ashley needs to read.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Ashley.
Okay.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 2012, an ordinance of the city of Danville, Kentucky, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2024 by appropriating funds for the operation of the city government.
And so the chair needs to entertain a motion for first reading of ordinance. The number is 2012, 23-24 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 2012.
Second?
Any other questions or comments? Roll call vote then, right?
Commissioner Caudle,
Yes.
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Mayor Atkins,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes,
Commissioner Saris.
Yes.
The next item on our agenda is ordinance number 2013, fiscal year 23-24, ABC regulatory fees.
So I believe Ashley put this in your packet. Each year, we just reaffirm the alcohol rates that we assess on the different types of alcohol sales. There are 3 different rates, one on gross sales of all beverages sold by the drink, on retail sales of packaged distilled spirits and wine, and then a separate rate on the retail sales of packaged malt beverages. Within your packet is a analysis. It says 6/30/23 at the top. That was probably as of 6/8/23, something like that when I prepared. No, that's today, so probably the 5th when I prepared this. Revenue related to alcohol for the current year was $698,534.95. And then we allocate a percentage on some expenses, for instance, for police expenses. Some of the, like, for instance, the ABC coordinator, some of her salary is allocated directly for ABC. And other expenses are 100% ABC related. But in total, we have a $1,203,180.80 in expenses related to ABC items. So that essentially is a net deficit of $504,645.85. So my understanding is that the ABC rate you have to be able to justify your rates with your expenses. In the current year, we're not recommending a change to those ABC rates. We are recommending the rates stay at 5% of sales by the glass, 4% for packaged distilled spirits and wine, 3% of sales of packaged malt beverages. In the future, it may be a different case where we recommend a change in the rate, but I think for the current year, this has been a similar trend as the past few years. We have seen more revenue in ABC total, just because we have more restaurants that are selling alcohol and more sales in general, which is why we're not recommending a current increase in the rate.
How are we paying the current deficit, Lee?
We don't, it's not like a deficit that hangs out there somewhere, right? Those are all in the general fund.
Okay.
The revenue's in the general fund, the expenses are all in the general fund. It's just, if some cities, I think, want to be closer to covering all of the ABC expenses with ABC revenue. But in that case, you have to track really close down to 100% of the penny of exactly what is ABC related.
Wait. No.
Sounds fair. You know, I would have been an advocate to bring those rates down, but by your income statement, it can't be
Yeah.
justified.
We haven't actually changed the rates ever since
Yeah.
we initiated selling alcohol in Danville. So these have been the rates since 2003, thank you. So
Why would she know the answer to that?
it was a memorable year.
Yeah. Other questions or comments about?
Is it a quarterly report? And just a question, the top is your quarterly income for alcohol sales. The bottom, is that a yearly
So
amount?
those are both yearly,
Okay,
yeah.
so this is,
So in total for the year, that's, it might go up slightly. You might hit 710 by the end of
Okay.
this year, but those are yearly total.
That's
And your
yearly.
expenses will be up a
Okay.
little bit with payroll and things like that by the end of this year, but as of about 6/8, that's your yearly
Okay.
total.
I misread it, I understand.
Is that right? Other
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, so people say you're generating millions of dollars in revenue from alcohol. No, you're not. You're generating 698,000. Your increased expenses for the enforcement of alcohol is attributable up to 1.2 million. So you are increasing your operating expenses to have alcohol. However, folks would argue that's a quality of life issue. We do have more restaurants now. We do have those things. So the net benefit to the economy is there.
And the increase in a lot of these expenses, they also make increased presence of law enforcement throughout our community. They're doing a lot more than just ABC stuff, so.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, do your thing.
Do we need, okay.
This is the first reading of ordinance number 2013, an ordinance establishing the regulatory license fee for the sale of alcoholic beverages in the city of Danville for fiscal year 2023 through 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. Chair, entertain a motion.
I move to accept the ordinance number 2013.
I'll second.
Thank you all. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we need to have a roll call vote for this one as well.
Commissioner Peak,
Yes.
Mayor Atkins,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Sayers,
Yes.
Commissioner Cottle.
Yes.
What if Commissioner Series had made a motion to not accept ordinance 2013? I wonder how staff would react to that motion. Oh, that's funny. Okay, any other business, any other unreadiness?
I just wanted to remember Sam Turner today. His funeral's already happening, and he passed away this week. So he was a former Public Works employee.
Yeah, we hated to hear that.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was here for a number of years and, you know, did a lot
He
for
did.
the community. You know, those positions go unheralded sometimes, but, you know, Sam's been down there at 3 o'clock in the morning fixing a motor that for a snowplow truck, the back of it, so that salt could be spread, so that when folks got up in the morning, there was a fighting chance they could get to work safe. And so we appreciate the effort that Sam put into serving the community.
Wow. And again, as we close out this meeting, I want to thank the city manager and all staff for the presentation again. You keep apologizing for us getting bits and pieces of it, but really it's been easier to understand, not rather than getting a whole shebang at one time. So I appreciate it. And then to the commissioners, you all keep apologizing for asking questions. Don't do that. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
If you don't understand it, ask questions, because, you go outside that door and it passes, you're gonna be held accountable for it. I always tell everybody it's the commissioner's budget, not the city managers, not the finance officer, and not the mayor's budget. It's the commissioner's budget, for you all.
I'll play off your comments, Mayor, and the staff, and I want to give kudos to Josh and his oversight of construction. They did the best they could to get to brass band weekend, and it wasn't bad. It looked pretty good. I was pretty impressed.
The big question, when the light's gonna come on?
I don't know. I'm with you on that. Like,
I told somebody, I said,
I think some of them are here, and you're realistically, the thing that's going to annoy me just as a human is going to be the traffic control devices, your big mast arms,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
things. Those are the things, I remember being told by the administration agency, I won't say who it is, the state. Remember we were at a commission meeting, we said, well, we should have this approved by December, right? Because that's what we were led, but that was like 4 years ago.
You didn't say which December.
And that,
You said-
remember there was discussion of the wooden pole at 4th Street, and that wooden pole was put there temporarily, like in 2012, when the metal pole was knocked down. And that wooden pole was knocked down, and it was replaced in 2013. And we have, we're the only downtown that has the character that ours has, with wooden poles on Main Street that are state-owned. And so we have, remember, we talked about that at length. It might have even been older than 4 years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, that we started trying to get that approved, trying to get that process through to change those signal poles. So the signal poles are what's going to take forever, and they just, I don't know why. I have no idea.
I thought you was gonna just go out there one at midnight, just take them down one day.
Well, we've been accused of that before too, but it was actually at 6 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't midnight. We went first thing in the morning.
Yeah, midnight you got caught.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, anything else? Well, again, please take the message to staff that we really appreciate what's been done. Okay? Chair is open for a motion to adjourn, if that's your pleasure.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you all. Any other readiness? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. All right. Thank you, guys.